So it's Danny Flexon here for SecondsOut. Delighted to be joined by my good friend and Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren here at his office. First one of 2024 for us, so Happy New Year, Frank.
Happy New Year to you and all your viewers, Dan. Hope it's been as exciting as it was last year.
Now, Frank, before we kick off, I've got a bit of a bone to pick with you. I hear from good authority that my colleague Radio Raheem was once again in your box recently at Arsenal.
You're an Arsenal man.
Is Radio Raheem a football man at all? Is a better question, I think.
Well, come along to the Crystal Palace game.
Well, I dropped that hint so hard, I would hope you'd respond. Yeah, because everyone's been in your box except me, which is maybe not the best way of putting it, but you're handing it out all over town.
Not that easy.
Not that way inclined. It's busy already, start of 2024, and we'll talk about that, but you ended the year on a real high with the Day of Reckoning event. Now it's in the rearview mirror. Do you consider it the biggest show that you've worked on?
I think it is, in as much that the amount of the fights, the quality of the fights, and the fact you couldn't put a card on like that under normal circumstances anywhere in the world because of the cost of it and so forth and how you generate the revenue. So, but being part of the Riyadh season, that made it happen. And with HE's Excellency, we've done, everybody involved have done a fantastic job and delivered a fantastic night of boxing.
I like that we're shortening it to HE now. It makes it easier for all of us. What was it like, that kind of collaborative process? I know everyone focuses on you and Eddie Hearn, but there were, 12 promoters involved or more than that? I can't remember the number, but how different was that from what you're used to running it all on your own?
Well, they really are. But most shows that we run are in, if it's a big main event, are normally in collaboration with the particular opposition, as we would say, with their promoter. So they'll get a name check and be involved in it as always. But yeah, it was good, and everybody. But there was such a good vibe about it. Everybody really enjoyed it. It was a really good experience, fantastic night. And I did enjoy it as a fight fan. I enjoyed it. I mean, just sitting there watching some of the fights, and I knew there would be upsets. I knew that. I really did feel. You could see it was people were taking a lot of things for granted, and I didn't think that was going to be the case.
How did you get convinced to do the photo shoot with Eddie Hearn hand in hand with Turki Al Sheikh as well, or was it your suggestion perhaps?
No, it was his suggestion. He did photos he does them with all of them. I mean, the previous previous show he's there, we did the similar thing, and yeah, he got us together. I mean, he's probably having a bit of fun as well, isn't he, with us too? So, it's all good fun. Look, I got no problem with it. We're in a very, very competitive business, and we all go to basically go to war for our fighters. That's what we do. We work hard. And when it comes to this type of, unique situation, which is great for everybody involved, you'd be an idiot to ruin it. And that's what we got to continue to do, is to keep working and keep delivering.
Have you and Eddie spoken since then? Christmas dinner perhaps, round at his or yours?
No, he tried to pull my cracker, but I wouldn't have. No, I haven't.
Saw that picture.
Yeah. No, I haven't spoken to him or seen him since. No, I think Georgia spoke to him. Well, yeah, I know he spoke to him a few times.
We're looking ahead now, and there's two big shows already been announced for Rio. We haven't got a date on one of them yet, but first up, 6 weeks' time now, is it? Fury against Usyk, yeah. First ever undisputed fight heavyweight in the 4-belt era. First of any kind, 3-belt or 4-belt this century. Huge event. I think most people thought someone would have pulled out by now or something would have gone wrong. All seems to be on track.
Well, there's all these rumours flying around, but look, we're starting the year as we ended it. With a fabulous show, we're starting it with the biggest event in boxing. I mean, it's the biggest event, as you say, this century. It's the gold ribbon division and 2 undefeated fighters. Everybody's got a view about it. Based on their last couple of performances, I'm sure some people have changed their views maybe and so forth, but it's got the ingredients of a great fight. And as a standalone, stand-up fight, it doesn't get any better than that. These two guys will put on I think a classic event, a classic fight. It's going to be something that's going to be extra special. I'm convinced of that.
Has your view changed at all based on Fury's performance against Ngannou?
No, not at all, because in fact, I actually fancy him more now. The Ngannou fight, I mean, I keep repeating myself about it. It was a unique event. And as I classed it as an event before the fight. I said, this is an event. That's how I phrased it, because that's how I felt it was. Huge event, which it was, and a game changer and what it'd lead to. What I didn't expect it to become the fight it became. I genuinely felt that Ngannou will come and fight. I felt he will, he's a fighting man. He's not a nerd, a computer nerd coming out from behind a screen or a YouTuber. He's a proper trained fighter in his discipline in UFC and the best at what he does in UFC. And as I said, he can punch. You only got to go and look at it on YouTube or wherever, and you see his knockouts. You know that if it comes to him fighting, the way they fight, close up, holding, pulling around, that would be his game. That would favour him maybe a little bit doing that, because Tyson sometimes in fighting, he can pull people and mess people around. And so I just felt for a while it would be a problem. Not a problem, but I thought Tyson would have to get the key to the door to find a way. What I didn't expect with him was the way he boxed. And they obviously done their homework, and they done a real good job in obviously looking at how he was going to perform against Tyson. And he had a good discipline. He shaped up like a boxer. He wasn't so square on as an MMA fighter. He switched it. He weren't standing for any feints or anything. He stood his ground. And Tyson, by the way, who did train well, did do what he had to do, and he's not made any excuses. But I think he had an off night. I don't think he was himself. I'll just say how it is. And I think anyone who watched that fight would say that. But in spite of that, he won the fight. And as much as we've heard some of the nonsense that's gone down, he won that fight. And if he fought him again, it would be entirely different fight. And I think he will. And I think he would win the fight much, much easier. I'm convinced of that. But, ringside was Usyk sitting there watching it. Maybe he sees some chinks in the armour. But I know that certainly myself, I've always felt with Usyk, who's been a great champion both at cruiserweight and at heavyweight. He's been an excellent fighter, but I've always felt there's a little chink in his armour. And that chink is his body. And that's what we tried to exploit, or Daniel tried to exploit when he fought him in Poland. And we're going to go into all that controversy again, but I've got my views on that. And obviously some people got different views. But whatever, he shows he can be hurt to the body. And it's not the first time. So what do I feel about the fight? I think that Tyson, I just feel, Tyson's a very smart operator, very smart boxer, as is Usyk. But I think that Tyson is the better class fighter, and I think that he's got more in his armoury. I think he's the bigger puncher, and I think he will exploit those weaknesses against Usyk. And I think it's going to be a good fight because, you look at Usyk. What's he going to do? Is he go on the back foot, or is he going to come forward? It's all those sort of things. What's going to happen? I think Tyson will take the fight to him.
It's been widely reported or assumed that this is a 2-fight deal, that there is a rematch clause for those two guys. What happens if the first fight ends in a blowout, one way or the other? Is that still the case?
Well, let's see what happens in the fight. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I'd be very surprised if that happened. But anything can happen in boxing. Who knows? I mean, I've always say, when you talk about heavyweights, you've got these big guys in there who throw bombs. And one of them's only got to land, whether it lands in the first round or the first 10 seconds of the first round or in the last round. It can end a fight.
Have you guys accepted, though, that when the first bell rings in Fury Usyk, he will then relinquish, whether through his own desire or... No?
No, he's not relinquishing anything at this moment in time.
But is there a good chance the IBF take the belt away?
We will see what happens after the fight. It'd be pretty poor for him to do that, but we'll see what happens.
Have you spoken to the IBF? Has there been any contact?
No.
Because I think the thing is, they will feel if there's a rematch and Fury's tied up further, they don't want to delay their mandatory any more than one fight, I guess.
Well, they've got their views, and like everybody, they're entitled to their views. If it's a really great fight and it deserves a rematch, then that's what will happen. It's not going to. What will happen now? We're lucky with this situation, with what's going down. Certainly in the Riyadh season and what it's bringing to boxing and what it's enabling these guys to earn huge purses, huge money, which is fabulous for the fighters, fabulous for everybody concerned, including myself. But what it's, the governing bodies they're going to have to be a bit more sensible. And that's really how it is. And if they don't, then people are just, and I'm quite loyal with the governing bodies that I work with, but I can see there'll be a situation if you get this nonsense, where the governing bodies will just be ignored. I mean, you see, for example, what's his name, Opatea, give his title up. What am I going to do? Give up this massive purse when everybody concerned, including the challenger, the mandatory, were all good to go. What stupidity was that all about? So, you know what? Your belt, what's your belt worth? If I take that belt to the bank and put it in the bank, what's it worth? It ain't worth the money what's going in there, is it? I mean, it's, come on, it's just ridiculous. And they need now to be sensible. And everybody deserves their, works hard to get into a mandatory position. And if I have a fighter in a mandatory position, obviously I'm going to push him. Yeah. Of course I am. That's my job. That's what I've got to do. But common sense must prevail. And if you are agreeing terms with the mandatory challenger and he's happy to, let another fight go on or whatever, well, that's a no-brainer. Total no-brainer.
Yeah, so with that in mind, have you spoken to the people behind Filip Hrgović at this stage? No
conversations. All we're focusing on is the fight that everybody wants to see. I don't want to complicate anything. There's no need to complicate it. This is all what you said at the start of this interview. It is what it is. First time this century, first time 4 belts. It's all for, what do we want to start even tarnishing what we're doing before the fight? Sort that crap out afterwards.
What's the TV situation for Fury Usyk? Is it just TNT here and ESPN in the US?
That will be announced in due course.
Fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about the undercard as well. We've seen a couple of reports come out. Jai Opetaia, who we mentioned just now, he's on there apparently. Also, Sergei Kovalev making his comeback. It was reported earlier today on the Fury Usyk undercard. Anything else you can tell us about it?
That will all be announced very, very soon. It's all being put together. It's all being completed. It's a really good undercard with some really good quality fighters on there. I'm not being evasive, but until contracts are signed, it's pointless talking about them because all you do is create a rod for your own back. So let's get them sorted out.
Moses Italma apparently could be on there.
He's actually out in Saudi and Riyadh now. He's working. He's obviously a southpaw and he's working with Tyson.
As is Jai Opetaia.
As is Jai, yeah. And my son Francis actually flown out this morning. And he's sparring as well with him. He's a southpaw, yeah.
So could we see Moses on there perhaps?
I hope so. I'd like to see him on there, but we'll see what happens.
It's interesting. I read your boxing scene article when I was on the way here this morning. You were talking about how important it is for the breakthrough shows on TNT in terms of getting young fighters ready for those bigger arena shows. And I wondered if there was going to be in the future on these big Saudi shows, you might blood some of these young prospects on those as well.
Well, Moses has already fought on one.
Yeah.
He's been out there and there'll be other fighters in due course. I'm certain will fight on the cards. But, they're all, at the end of the day, the main event is what everybody talks about. That's what sells the event. And then all the rest of it, what you build up, that's blimey, that's a good show. I'll have some of that. There's a great undercard. And if we can get some exposure for some really good young talent coming through, we'll do that. But in the meantime, we've still got to keep blooding and keep getting these young fighters experience. And that's very, very important. And that's always been part of what I've done over the years, with the fighters that I'm involved with. And we've done it very, very successfully. And a lot of these youngsters are coming through and looking really good now.
And the focus so far with these Riyadh season events has been very much on the higher weight divisions, heavyweight specifically, but also cruiser, light heavy. We've been told HE, as we're now calling him, is very keen on Bivol Beterbiev as well. And we might talk about Beterbiev, Callum Smith later. Where's that coming from? Is that coming from His Excellency and the people around him, or is that you guys? Why is it so higher weight focused so far?
Well, a lot of it does come from him himself because he's a massive boxing fan. He does what we all do. We all sit there, look at fights and dream about making them. But for various reasons, some of them don't happen. And now there is great opportunity to make a lot of these fights at the best fighting the best. So they will happen. And, you can only get so many fights on a card to start with. So it's going to take quite a few shows and it'll settle down. And as it settles down, I'm sure the other weight divisions will be, well, they will be involved in it. I mean, we've done coming into March, it'll be 4 shows we've done out there already.
So we'll talk about Joshua and Ngannou in a minute. I'm sure loads of people are interested in your views on that. But the Day of Reckoning, just to put a cap on that, can you give us an idea of how it performed on TV in terms of pay-per-view buys? I know you split it with The Zone, of course, and TNT.
It's done really, really well. Everybody's very, very happy with it. It's had tremendous exposure around the world. I mean, really, really great exposure, and especially look at the time of the year it's done, and how quickly it was put together. It's done phenomenally well. Everybody's extremely happy.
Who did better, The Zone or TNT?
I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I mean, obviously The Zone is only in the UK, so and actually I can't off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you it was, but it's irrelevant because it's 2 markets. It's the same market, but it's 2 different ways of being able to go and watch it, and people pick what they want to do.
Could that happen? I know you're not going to tell us specifically about Fury Usyk, but could we see that kind of working together again?
I'm sure we're going to see that in all guises with fights over the years now. I'm quite sure something like that will happen.
So it's Danny Flex and back with Frank Warren. We had some technical difficulties after discussing Fury Usyk, but we want to move on now to Anthony Joshua against Francis Ngannou, set for early March. No date has been officially confirmed as yet. And Frank, just first of all, what role did you have, if any, in bringing this fight together and on the night itself?
Same as we did in the last fight. And all the shows that we've done out there, the last 2 shows, it'll continue to be the same.
And so you'll be promoting it in collaboration with the fighters' teams?
In correct conjunction and in associations, all the different wordings, what are you going to say, that we'll be involved in, of course.
How much chance do you give Francis Ngannou? Obviously, he's increased his stock with that fight with Tyson Fury. But a lot of people still criticising AJ for this, calling it a cash grab, saying it's an easy fight. What do you think?
Well, look, he's getting well paid for it, and that's what they're out there for. Both of them are getting well paid. Tyson got well paid for the fight too. But Ngannou's shown if he catches you, he can hurt you. He's done that as a UFC fighter, tremendous puncher. You don't want to be fighting him on the inside because that's his game. That's what they do. You only got to watch the UFC. You can see the guys there. You're not going to fiddle them about inside. That's the way they fight. You also see, which is I'm mentioning again, you know that he's a big puncher, and if he catches AJ, I think he could knock him out if he catches him. But then I think he could knock out nearly any of the heavyweights out there if he catches him. He's that type of fighter. He's a big puncher, and he showed he can box a bit. For AJ going into the fight, at least he's seen him now in the boxing ring. He's seen him how he performs in a boxing ring against probably the best heavyweight in the world in Tyson. So he knows what to expect. What'll be interesting to see, what has Ngannou learnt from the first fight that he had as a heavyweight? Obviously, anyone who's now fighting him will be looking to see what they feel will be the chinks in his armour, what they can exploit and so forth. But can he get better? At that age he is, can he get better? It'll be, as I say, it's very, very going to be very, very interesting, and how, what tactics AJ uses in the fight. I mean, he's a big puncher himself. Is he going to go and just try and take him out? I don't know. I think he'll try and break him down. Can he do that? All of it is quite interesting. And he's a switch hitter as well. He can turn to southpaw.
If AJ, whoever comes through, do you see them matching up sometime later this year with the Fury Usyk winner?
I think that will happen in due course. I don't know when, but I definitely think it will happen because, that's what, again, everybody would like to see happen. There's no doubt about it. There's other guys out there as well that, at the top there who also want to get their sort of taste of it as well. There's guys in mandatory positions, and mandatory positions, mandatory fights are going to be called for. There's no doubt about that.
Is there a rematch clause, can you tell us, for Joshua against Ngannou?
At this moment in time, all we're all focusing on is that fight.
And how much of a risk do you think this is for AJ at this stage of his career? He's coming off a one-sided win over Otto Wallin. Is this a harder fight, perhaps?
I think he'll have more of an appetite than Wallin did. I was a bit disappointed with Wallin, but then again, I'm not going to take anything away from AJ because he did what he had to do with the man in front of him. he busted him up. I mean, he busted his nose. He didn't want to be in there at the end, Wallin, that's for sure.
Did you ever think at this stage of both your careers you'd be co-promoting an Anthony Joshua fight?
No, I gave up on that, trying to make the fight between him and Tyson. But look, stranger things have happened. We are where we are, so we're working on these fights, the promotional companies together now, and we're making them happen. That's brilliant. All and we all of us have got HE to thanks for that.
And talking of HE, do you think AJ ever fights in Saudi without you being involved at this point?
At this moment in time, we're working very closely with Sella when we are there. We're working with them as a promoter. I mean, we're doing obviously Tyson's show. We're doing that in conjunction with K2, and a couple of other and Tyson's company, Gold Star. So it's just get the events on. We will be involved in them. There's no doubt about that.
Are we going to hear about the AJ undercard anytime soon? Apparently there's a press conference maybe Monday.
There will be, and all these fights will be announced. It's going to be a cracking show.
More Queensberry fighters on there?
Yeah, there'll be Queensberry fighters on there.
And what about some of the other heavyweights we saw on Day of Reckoning? When are we likely to see some of those guys back? And also Zhilei Zhang, who wasn't on that show, but one of your marquee heavyweights.
They'll all be out fairly soon. Remember, the heavyweights all fought just before Christmas. So some of them were in real tough fights and need time to recuperate from their training camps and so forth. But most of them will be out, and certainly Zhang will be out sometime in March, no doubt about that.
And then you've got a couple of fights of your own coming up. You've got Liam Williams, Hamza Shiraz, which was delayed but takes place a week before Fury Usyk. What can we expect from that one?
Sorry, say that again.
Hamza Shiraz, Liam Williams was delayed, but a week before Fury Usyk now. What can we expect from it?
I think it's going to be a cracking fight. I think it's a real, we're going to see what Hamza's all about. He's in with a guy who's twice fought for world titles against Liam Smith. Real good fights they were. He's a competitor. He seems to have found a new lease. He had a good win last time out. I know he bowled the guy over. But he'll be a big test for him. It's a big step up for him. Good test for him. But I really do think that Hamza is one of our better prospects. And I hope and think he'll come through this fight and will go on and win a world title. I mean, he's a cracking advert for the game. He's very smart. He's very articulate. He can fight, which is really important. And I think he's a great. A great standard bearer for British boxing, and he will go from strength to strength.
And I was saying to you earlier, all this working together, this collaboration, I used to feel you thrived off the competition. Now you're embracing the competition. How's that change been for you and the other guys at Queensberry? Well,
you thrive off of making the fights happen, and we're making some of these fights happen, which is brilliant. That's what we've all of us work towards and do. And where some fights couldn't be made because of money or because of personalities, all that because of Riyadh season and what's going on out there is sort of being pushed to one side, and everybody can see the sense and the benefit for the fighters, for boxing, and for the fans in working on this.
I spoke to Matchroom CEO Frank Smith yesterday. He said he was going to make you some green tea as a peace offering, if you like. Have there been conversations internally about being kinder to each other in the media? Because there does seem to be a frosting or thawing of relations.
No, I think George deals quite a bit with Eddie. I still prefer Andy Alien's green tea to Frank's. We'll have to say that anyway, or there'll be problems here. But I mean, it's we're all sensible. We've all got to work together. It's all of us. I think it's a lot of people in boxing. I mean, over the years, I've worked with various promoters. I worked with Don King for a long while. I worked with Bob Arum. You name them, I've worked with them and worked with them on long-term basis.
Just finally, before I let you go, there's a big fight this weekend between Artur Beterbiev, who you know well from the Anthony Yard fight, taking on Callum Smith. Tough one. Eddie Hearn says he's visualised the ending. It's Callum Smith slipping to his left and uncorking a big left hook for the victory. Have you ever visualised your fighters winning, and if so, which ones? Well,
I hope it's not a night. That dream doesn't turn into a nightmare. Yeah, I mean, when I've made some of the matches over the years, some matches for some of my fighters, I have not visualised, but could see what their strengths were and what the other guy's weaknesses were, and whether, you know, he was still the same fighter as he used to be if he was a champion. Was there any chinks in his armour? And I've been pretty good at doing that over the years.
And what do you make of Beterbiev against Smith? What's your prediction for that one?
Well, Beterbiev had a real tough fight, as we know, against Anthony Yarde. I think Anthony gave him his toughest fight. But he came through, and he's about 38 now, something like that. And Liam, what's Callum, sorry, what's he, 30?
32 maybe?
32, so he's no youngster. I've got to fancy Beterbiev. He's in his transplanted hometown, and I've got to think that he'd be too big and too strong.
And Anthony Yarde's back on the aforementioned Shiraz Williams bill. Who would you like to see him fight, assuming he comes through in February? And yeah.
The winner of the Buatsi and Aziz fight. I'd love that fight to happen.
And that's an excellent fight. Who do you see coming through? Who will be facing Anthony Yarde potentially in the summer?
It's a tough fight with both of them, but I think I favour Aziz.
Fair enough. Frank, really, really appreciate your time as always. Apologies for the technical difficulties. I'm sure I'll make up to you next time. But we'll see you soon.
Lovely. Thank you, Dave.